It's been over a week since the new Knuckles series released on Paramount+, and to say Sonic fans are divided on its quality would be the understatement of the century. At least from my social media circles, the reception has mostly been mixed to overwhelmingly negative, with many complaining about Knuckles being shafted, the human characters taking up way too much screen time, and an overall sense of wasted potential. I honestly didn't even know if I was going to check out the show, mostly because I didn't have or really want to get Paramount+. But after seeing the rainbow spectrum of discourse around this show, I decided to get myself a free trial for the service and watch the series myself. And what do I think about it? Well, the title of the video is self-explanatory, but you know. For a quick rundown on the show's premise, after the events of Sonic 2, Knuckles is having trouble to adjusting to life on Earth. And after taking advice from Sonic in the most literal way, as he tends to do, he starts to treat the Wachowskis' house as his old stomping grounds, which goes as well as you expect. Matt then grounds Knuckles, which he's clearly not happy about, but Sonic tries to cheer him up by telling him he can do other things on Earth. Things that Knuckles just cannot relate to. Feeling lost, he contacts one of his ancestors, which leads him to speak to Chief Pachacamac, who actually appeared in the first Sonic movie and is partially responsible for the demise of the Echidna race in the mainline Sonic games. Mac tells Knuckles that the Echidna ways can still live on through an apprentice, and suggests he contacts Wade Whipple, a comedic side character from the first two Sonic movies, who's on his way to a bowling tournament of champions in Reno, Nevada. The two meet up and agree to go on a journey to the tournament so that Wade can not only become a champion, but also a warrior, and wacky hijinks ensue. For the positives, I really like the dynamic between Wade and Knuckles. As while Knuckles tends to be calm, collected, and very serious, he is also completely out of his depth, and he doesn't really understand Earth customs that well. And he's somewhat closed off as an individual. On the opposite side of the coin we have Wade, who, thanks to being a human, obviously knows how to get around, but isn't very serious at all, and he's pretty friendly and eccentric to boot. These clashing personalities lead to some very great interactions and banter throughout the episodes, as Knuckles tries to teach Wade to grow a spine and be confident and stand up for himself. Meanwhile, Wade's life experiences teach Knuckles that he needs to be a more rounded out person, and his warrior lifestyle can't be the only thing he has to have going for him. Two of the best scenes of them together have to go to episodes 2 and 5 respectively. In episode 2, after the fight with the two ex-gun agents, Knuckles and Wade decide to go to a burger joint and have a so-called victory feast. But Knuckles objects to calling the entire operation a victory, as he was captured due to Wade's failure in battle from the first episode, and overall, they didn't really gain anything from the previous incursions, and they just got lucky. Wade then counters this by saying that while those things did happen, as his father once told him, when it comes to winning, you have to take what you can get. And them getting out alive, even if they didn't get anything out of it, is something worth celebrating. I think this is a neat lesson that anyone can learn from, in that while our day-to-day lives can be messy and unpleasant, being alive and waking up to see another day is something that's worth appreciating. Speaking of fathers, one of the big aspects of Wade's character arc is his relationship with his dad. Growing up, the two loved and bonded over bowling, but one day while they were shopping in a TJ Maxx, Wade's father just got up and abandoned him, leaving his family to pick up the pieces. This event forever changed Wade, as he essentially grew up to be an awkward but well-meaning man-child who desperately finds ways to validate himself and not be seen as a failure. And in episode 5, they actually do find Wade's dad, now going by the name of Pistol Pete, but Wade hesitates to talk to him because it's been so long and he can't find the right words. But then Knuckles offers his assistance, and it goes as well as you expect. Eventually Wade decides this strategy isn't going to work and he pulls out the AirPods and finally starts to speak for himself. These scenes, along with stuff like Knuckles interacting with Wade's mom in episode 3, are my personal highlights of the show. I would also like to give credit to the fight scenes, like the ones in episode 1 and 3. They are decently choreographed, and seeing the actors trying to interact with a character that's not really there is very impressive. But it's unfortunate that these things and a few other technical and miscellaneous elements are like the only things I like about the show, because the negatives of this series vastly outweigh the positives. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. If you've seen any of the discourse surrounding this show, you know the common talking point about how for a show titled Knuckles, the Echidna himself is barely in it. While I do feel this is a slight exaggeration, the underlying sentiment is true. Because while I feel Wade's arc in this show is decent overall, it ends up coming at the expense of Knuckles' character development. Because by episode 4, Knuckles really starts to feel like a bystander in his own series. In the first 3 episodes, I feel like Knuckles has some decent amount of screen time. I know some people don't like how Knuckles is literally put in the cage for a decent amount of episode 2's runtime, but I can understand from a writing standpoint why they did this. As we saw Knuckles defending Wade in the first episode and eventually getting captured, episode 2 in a sense is about Wade using his resourcefulness to get Knuckles back, returning the favor in a sense. But by episode 4 and onward, Knuckles' character development just gets put on hold until the very end of the show, and he is completely put on the sidelines in favor of Wade and the other humans. In episode 5, he has around 5 or so minutes of screen time, only appearing in the beginning and then reappearing at the end sitting in a hotel room. And in episode 6, the penultimate episode, all he mostly does is just fight. That's it. His encounter with the buyer, who is advertised as the main villain of this show, doesn't carry any emotional weight. Cause not only does this guy have a grand total of 5 minutes of screen time in a series that's over 3 hours long, but Knuckles doesn't even know who this guy is. It feels like it's trying to be a retread of the first Sonic movie, but I feel it fails to hit some of the basic points even that movie had. The moment where Knuckles gets the Flames of Disaster, which is revealed to us for a low-budget rock opera in episode 4, is meant to be seen as this huge moment, but it just falls flat for so many reasons. Firstly, Knuckles himself never acknowledges at any point in the series that he possesses the Flames of Disaster. And if episode 4 is to be believed, he had this power before the events of not only the series, but also the second movie, which when you think about it, ends up creating sort of a retroactive plot hole. You're telling me that at no point in Sonic 2 did it not come to Knuckles' mind of using the Flames of Disaster against a giant death robot? Or Sonic, who Eggman convinced him that he was bad and was going to take the Master Emerald for himself? Sure, maybe using it on humans in this series is a bit of an overkill, but not against a giant death robot? And second, this clearly is trying to be a parallel to Sonic's huge power boost from the first movie, but it fails to understand why that scene works as well as it does in the first place. In Sonic 1, it's mentioned many times that Sonic's power is very unstable, and we are shown many examples of that throughout the movie. It isn't until the final battle where we finally see Sonic gain control of his power, thanks to Tom declaring Sonic to be his best friend, and as Sonic has said throughout the movie, that's something he always wanted, making this a very satisfying payoff. Meanwhile, in the Knuckles series, since Knuckles has already discovered this power, and probably could have activated this at any moment in the series, this entire moment just comes off as completely unearned. No matter which way you slice it, it was a mistake to have Knuckles obtain the Flames of Disaster in the past. Part of the show should have been about him trying to find a way to get the Flames of Disaster in the present, and with the help of Wade and his family, he can finally achieve it. The Flames of Disaster is such a massive piece of wasted story potential that in my first draft of the script, I ended up writing out an entire section of how I would have implemented it better. But after sitting on it, I realized that I would probably bloat this video to an insane degree, so I decided to potentially make that section its own video. So let me know in the comments if you would like to see that. While I harbor no ill will towards the actors in the show, they seem to be having a lot of fun with the material, but their enthusiasm can only go so far to save these scripts. Cause I'm going to be honest with you guys, this show has some abysmal dialogue. If I were to hone in on one reason to why I say this, it's because it can feel overly verbose and over-explanatory. Like they're afraid the kids in the audience won't get what's going on or what emotions they should be feeling, so they just have to spell it out to you, giving some real ChatGPT vibes in some moments.
We are so screwed!
Yeah, I'm pissed too.
We've been selling weapons to one of the most dangerous criminal organizations in the world, run by an absolute sociopath. We show up empty-handed, he's gonna straight up kill us. Most likely in a pretty horrible way.
No. They have Knuckles, and it's all my fault. I have to do something. I have to help him.
Oh, gold everywhere, so sensible. That's a private balcony? The prettiest skyline in the universe. Reno, Nevada. Dad, do you realize how opulent it is to have a fireplace in such a generally temperate climate in Nevada?
And I feel that over-explanatory nature extends to the show's comedy, which is not only bad, but somehow they feel they need to drag these gags out for way longer than they needed to be. Stuff like Wade bickering with his sister, almost everything with the ESPN dudes, and pretty much a lot of the stuff in the bowling tournament felt like it went on for an eternity, and desperately needed to be trimmed down. Going back to actors for a second, I like Kid Cudi, I enjoy his music, his Netflix series Intergalactic was a nice watch, and it's nice to know that he really likes Sonic, but my god was his acting in this so bad.
I hear the mushroom planet is beautiful this time of year, my friend. Enjoy! Lil Pig, where are you?
Like again, no offense to the guy, but this was not his best showing. In conclusion, the Knuckles show was honestly a complete waste of time for me personally. As a series, it's forgettable, and by the end of it, nothing really major happens. And as an exclusive for Paramount Plus, it's not worth getting the service over. Even using a free trial, I didn't feel it was worth it. I didn't have any real high expectations for this, which is why I didn't feel as betrayed as some fans do. But man, do I sympathize with those people. The Knuckles show is a lesson in how not being upfront with what your product is really about can backfire on you. Because I wouldn't be surprised if the way this series was received by fans and audiences will affect how they look at Sonic 3 in its eventual marketing campaign and release, being more critical of what they see. And honestly, I feel that's a good thing. People are starting to get real tired of these bait and switches. And while I wouldn't say the Knuckles show was the straw that broke the camel's back, it does make me wonder what future project does pull a similar stunt and people finally say enough is enough.